Alright, what's going on YouTube? So the gameplay you're actually going to be seeing here, I am not actually reverse switching. This was like 10 games after I initially did it and got my nuke. But yeah, these are some normal lobbies. I think I went 70 something and 30 something in both games, something like that. I don't know, it's pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. But today I actually wanted to talk to you about why I think school is dumb. Now, I don't necessarily think getting an education is dumb. What I think is the schooling system, especially in America, is just awful. To start off, school was actually made in like the 1800s, I believe, because they wanted people to become better workers, to follow a line, like a specific set of instructions, to work in like factories, where Harrison Ford came up with the construction line for his cars to automate it, and that's what kind of like blew up with the Industrial Revolution, and that's where school kind of got led into, and the education system currently stands. Now, I believe that the current schooling system is inefficient, and it lacks the ability to give students the creativity to view the world the way they want to view it, because we all view things differently, we all approach problems differently, but they have things like our math classes, our English classes. They tell you to look at something a certain way and not another way. They tell you to show your problem, show your work when you're doing a math problem a certain way, and this is taught to us from when we're literally 5 years old, when we're still little kids, to follow a systematic approach to any problem. And this is very much a problem from the beginning of our lives, and this is what I believe leads into a lot of like political issues where we're either Democrat or Republican, because we're taught to follow a certain guideline and not express our own feelings, express our own thoughts. And also, this plays into roles when we're told to like go to college and stuff instead of like pursuing our own careers, which would lead us into potentially getting a ton of money, like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, who are innovators on certain products, because they were able to come up with the creativity to find a new solution to a problem. Elon Musk with Tesla, creating a renewable energy source for cars that coming from electricity. And just things like this just doesn't stem from school, the current schooling system. One of my main gripes with school is tests. When you go to tests, you take a test, let's say you get an average score, whatever, somebody fails the test, they don't do good, and I get a lot of kids don't care about school, so they won't necessarily try. But even if you didn't understand the subject, you never really go back to that subject matter. So if you didn't understand it, you're not going to understand it in the rest of the course. So like, let's say hypothetically you didn't understand 2 times 2. Well, you're not going to understand what 2 times 2 times 3 is, because you don't understand the basics of 2 times 2. And this is what one of my main things, and I've always been really good at school. This doesn't necessarily mean that I'm smart, though. I'm not necessarily intelligent. I make a lot of stupid decisions. I just make a lot of not common sense decisions, because I don't. It's intelligence and being quote unquote smart in school doesn't really align with each other, because school is really all memorization and all, oh, I need to learn this, but then I'm gonna forget it when I learn something new because I need to learn that. It's literally just following directions, and I think that I am really good at school mainly because my dad was in the military. Now, I have absolutely no problems with the military. I really do love the military, but one of the things you're taught is to kind of follow orders, do things a certain way, and just kind of take a single approach to something because you kind of have to. So this is kind of what rubbed off on me. My dad was always, he's the superior, I'm kind of gonna go and do what he tells me to do. My mom's the superior, I'm kind of gonna go do what they tell me to do. So I believe that's kind of what led me to be pretty good at school. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm smart. I just still make a lot of dumb decisions. So that's probably my main things that I don't necessarily like about school. Going on to college. College is, I think, becoming less and less prevalent. It's still kind of needed, which I think is just dumb that you have to pay like $60,000+ just to have a potential to have a good income and be above poverty. But I think it's becoming less and less prevalent with other people that are doing things like YouTube, streaming, becoming their own entrepreneurs, making businesses and stuff like that. Is that people are being more independent. They're not needing another company to depend on. Even though you're like technically dependent on Google for YouTube, you're not necessarily a worker for them. So I think that's another thing, is college really kind of gets on my nerves a little bit about that, because you're paying $60,000 and being in debt for potentially the rest of your life for a chance to have a good living. And even that, even if you don't finish college, you still are in debt $20,000 at least. So that kind of gets on my nerves, because you're putting a risk just to live, essentially. And I know that people are risk takers and stuff like that, but it just doesn't really make sense to me that you're putting a risk just to be able to survive. And yes, I do understand that education is important, but what I don't understand is why it costs so much, why our tax dollars that go to the government are said to fund public schooling, but none of it can go to potential colleges in order for them to lower their cost of college. Actually, I just looked this up. They do that, but college still remains expensive in a lot of places, just because they're private companies and they earn money from that, which is just dumb in itself. How much money they make, because I think Rutgers, hold up, let me double check on that. Rutgers net worth assets total to approximately 1.76 or 1.476 billion dollars for a single, ultimately, company. That's an extreme amount of money, and honestly, 4-year colleges shouldn't be necessary, I believe, because we go to school, and in high school, I have talked to a lot of the other people that are around me, and I took 2 years of Spanish. I don't remember any of that Spanish other than what I already previously knew. I took 4 years of English. The only thing I knew outside of a few vocabulary words that I will never use in my life are how to make citations. I don't need 4 years of high school for that. Math, yeah, I did pretty much learn something new all the time there. Statistics was pretty much just a waste of time. And then social studies, it doesn't necessarily make you smart to go learn about something what someone did 200 years ago. I'm not necessarily going to be a more successful person or a more intelligent person with my decisions from what I knew from what someone did 200 years ago, all the way back to like literally the beginnings of humanity. I don't need to know that necessarily unless I want to go into a profession that needs that, which is why I think that with all of those classes out that we don't necessarily need, we could actually save 1 to 2 years of college. And even if colleges don't get cut down in cost, we will still be cutting down on thousands upon thousands of dollars for each and every student that wants to go attend, as they only need to attend a 4-year or a 2-year bachelor's instead of a 4-year, and potentially even a 6-year master's, which is just insane to think about how much money that would save people and how much better it would be for, I think, the economy. But I don't understand why we can't necessarily make that happen. And if governments could regulate how much money colleges could charge, because it really is just an extenuous amount, and even though we have so much money, and I really do support the military. My dad was in the military, my grandfather was in the military. We don't necessarily need as much money as we flow into it. I get that people need to get paid, but that is just a small portion of what actually goes into the income of the military, because we're building trillion-dollar jets, trillion-dollar aircraft carriers, just stuff that isn't necessarily needed, because no one's going to come to the US and say, we're gonna fight you, because we are so overpowered already. We have how many tanks sitting in a field, just useless, not doing anything. When's the last time we've used tanks? We don't need this stuff, so why don't we fund the school and fund the homeland? Which doesn't really make sense to me. Again, I'm not the most intelligent of people. I don't know everything that there is to know about this subject, but this is just like my little ideas on stuff, because it seems like it could have been so much better for us to get out of school 2 years early, even potentially having us start later so that we can enjoy being kids instead of having to go to school at 5 years old. And even waking us up to go to school at what time do people normally go to school? Anytime from 7:30 to 8:30. You know why that is? Because parents have to leave for work at whatever time, and it just doesn't make sense, because all studies showed that it is so much better for students just to go to school at like 10 and get off at like somewhere around potentially like 5 or something like that. It just makes so much more sense for that option, because students will actually get to learn and get to recognize and get to like physically take in all of that information that they're supposed to be taking in, instead of letting all that time go to waste, letting a lot of their life, a lot of their childhood go to waste in a school where they're not going to learn anything at all, where they're just going to sit there and be miserable because they're not allowed to express their own creativity in the classroom. And this may be different for some people. You may go to school where, oh, you can express creativity, you have an art class or something like that, but I've been talking to people around and they pretty much agree with all the stuff I talk about. It doesn't really make sense to have people get up so early, and it's not necessarily kids just being lazy. A lot of adults chalk it up to kids being lazy. It's really not. It's just kids wanting to satisfy their own needs, wanting to just be kids, and it's not really not laziness. What I've noticed from like the older generation is that you can't really express that something is wrong because, oh, that's just being lazy, you're not doing enough, other than what the common term is, work smarter not harder. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that we're gonna be not doing this efficiently as possible, and just wasting time and money and resources. I feel like we could be a lot better, and I know none of this is going to change. I'm basically almost out of school. I only have 3 years left of college and then I'm out, but it just seems like it can be made better for a whole lot of people, and I don't want to get like too start a riot or anything. I don't want to be like that guy that kind of pushes this out. This is just kind of my little thoughts about the subject and about what could have been so much better but just wasn't. Anyways, this was a rant. I hope you liked the video, and I hope you liked the gameplay that was in the background. So yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you like this, you want to hear more rants, definitely subscribe and leave a like. Anyways, that's pretty much all I'm going to say today. I don't got too much else to say. And yeah, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.